Hey everybody, it's Adam again and welcome back to my garage. Well, today we are working on the 2011 GMC Yukon Denali hybrid. I had a series of unfortunate events happening on the way to work one day about 2 months ago. I bottomed out going down the freeway at about 75 miles an hour. My front end shocks haven't really held up much more than maybe 40,000 miles. There's a video of me replacing them a while back when I had a nice big rattle. But either way, bottomed out and the truck basically went into neutral and said reduced engine power. So coasted up an exit ramp, tried to restart it, basically killed the hybrid battery. So I had it towed home and started looking into maybe an electrical issue because when it bottomed out, it was pretty rigid. And went through all the fuses and everything, couldn't find anything wrong, all the connections, everything looked fine. So I ended up pulling the oil filler cap off of the passenger side over here and cranked the truck over and found that the rocker, at least on this side, wasn't rocking. So the valves likely weren't valving in there. And one thing led to another. I pulled the driver's side valve cover off and all of the valves, all of the rockers were at the exact same level, which didn't make any sense at all because you should at least see some things that are kind of, cocked as we go along the way. The rockers should be in different positions. So that led me to believe, well, you know what, if I snap the timing chain or something that's probably all bent up inside there. I borescoped 7 of the 8 cylinders. I couldn't get to the passenger side back there, and the number 8 cylinder in the back side over there, and found that there was no contact with the pistons. So I think at least the valves are okay, but the fact that the rockers aren't moving at all leads me to believe there's something wrong with the timing chain or the overall cam timing system on this. So I wasn't going to bore you all with taking off the front accessories, but we're at the point now where we're going to pull the water pump off of here and see what's going on behind the timing chain cover and see what this thing looks like. Real curious. No one that I've talked to really has any idea why all of the rockers would be at the same level, especially if there wasn't any piston contact in here. So we're going to dig into this thing and you're going to come along for the ride. It is worth mentioning that this did throw some trouble codes when it first failed on the highway. It said I had a MAF sensor failure in addition to the camshaft position sensor failure down there. So once I replaced the MAF sensor, figured it was easy enough, and I got to tearing in to get that camshaft position sensor out of there, I decided that's when I was going to go into the valve covers. But ultimately, this did have some codes on it. I'm going to put them down in the description because I don't remember exactly what they were offhand. But this could also probably guide you towards coming up with a solution as well if you run into something similar. All right, so you can see we got the water pump off the front there. Basically gives us access to the timing cover here. So while I'm in here, I'm actually gonna take a look at the variable valve timing actuator up here as well. And I also have a new camshaft position sensor. So we're gonna go ahead and get the timing cover pulled off of here. We're gonna take a look at those there as well. But I think we're getting pretty close to the moment of truth here to see what's going on behind this timing cover. We're just a couple of 10mm bolts away from getting into that. Let's see. All right, let me show you something underneath here I got to contend with on the old hybrid. So up underneath here, there's a air conditioner compressor bracket that's screwed in here. I managed to get the 2 bolts off of the timing cover, the timing chain cover underneath there, so I'll be able to pull that off. But if I'm going to go after that oil pickup O-ring, I'm going to figure out how to get this guy off. I think I might just be able to remove these 2 bolts over here, get that slid down out of the way, but we're going to focus just on getting this timing cover off here first. I am very excited to see what this thing looks like underneath here. I've been waiting for a month and a half. We'll see. Hey! I'm working on it. Oh, no. No, 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 no. We don't want to lose that. Oh boy, yeah. That will do it right there. Holy cats. So it's amazing what a bottoming out over an overpass at 75 miles an hour will do to a timing chain. There's a couple of fragments. Looks like tensioner over here. I mean, that's not tensioning. The chain is still one piece, but she's just floating around on top of there. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna work on, I guess, probably pulling off this oil pump on the front of here, and then we're gonna figure out what's going on with the timing set here. I do have another sprocket. I got another chain. Oh, we got a little piece of something inside of our variable valve timing there. So I think what we're going to do is end up replacing this sprocket up top here. We'll check out the crank sprocket down there too, see how that looks. But yeah, this is that's a pretty significant issue there. Hey, at least we know what's going on now. There's a piece we don't want down in the oil pan. Looks like it's somewhat okay there. Well, boys, I got some good news and some bad news. We'll start with the bad news first. So I think I'm going to be one of those guys that's got to remove the EPS gear and the front differential down on the bottom there to get at that oil pan. I'm gonna have to drop it just far enough to see if I can get at the bottom of the oil pickup tube there. But what I'm worried about is, since I got a little piece of metal, you can see it right there sitting right up on top. If it'll focus on me there, need to get a magnet to go pick that guy out of there. But that looks like a piece of timing chain to me, sitting in the variable valve timing valve there. So I think I might need to drop this pan anyways, just in case there's any other pretty significant chunks of you know, rare earth floating around underneath there. The good news is this is great news actually. I managed to find the bolt that I dropped when I was pulling off the timing cover. That's going to make this so much easier to get back together. Oh, I neglected to mention too, the birds have had a Thanksgiving feast out here. Truck's been sitting out here since the beginning of May, and I don't know. Does anyone know how to take care of militant frickin' robins? All right, boys, we're in this one for the long haul now, so we're gonna go ahead and do a full oil pan drop underneath there. I don't know if I got shavings or anything like that down in there. I did find a piece of the chain link sitting around where the actuator is for the variable valve timing. So I think we're gonna have to drop the cross member. We're gonna drop the four-wheel drive front diff and maybe the steering rack. It's gonna be great. The good news is I bought a nice new impact wrench in order to get that front pulley off of there. So we're gonna put that to work. Yes! All right, for the steering rack, you got 4 bolts. You got 2 over here on the driver's side. They go into 2 mounts on here. And basically this is on the electrical power steering gear, but I think it's the same on the hydraulic one as well. 2 on this side, and then you got another 2 over here. 1 hidden back behind the cross member here. And then there's 1 up on top of there as well. You got to get at the top. Now back on the front differential, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 bolts on this side, and you got 2 studs coming through over on the passenger side. You got to get those down, and then you got obviously the 6 bolts coming through on the half shaft here, coming over from the front tires. So that covers the front differential as well as the steering. And then you got another 4 bolts and 4 nuts that go back here on the cross member itself. Lucky for me, even though it's pretty rusty underneath here, the old impact wrench was able to take all these out without too much of a problem, and life is good. Well, I feel a lot better that we took the pan off, because there is a piece of the tensioner, and it looks like it's got a nice embedded, I don't know, cogs from the sprocket in there. Wow. And then down here where the oil pickup is, there's a chunk of something. Another piece of the tensioner as well. So I guess the good news is aside from there being carbon all over the place in this thing, and yeah, a little bit of sludge down in there, a little bit of shavings in there, but you know, that's fine. I don't see any chunks of steel or anything, so that's good. We might go ahead and throw this one in the parts washer back there. Oh, look at, and what else we got here? A little piece of something else. So the good news is we'll go ahead and replace the oil pickup O-ring as well, since we're into this deep here. And I'm gonna have to go pick up another oil pan gasket, just because it looks like I tweaked this one a little bit. And since we're in here anyways, we might as well replace that gasket. We're gonna take this little tray out of here too and get this all cleaned up. So I'm gonna be running to the parts store tonight. Let's take a look underneath at the bottom of the timing chain. It was kind of lodged in there from the top. And yeah, oh, there you go. You can see the chain hanging down here. It is still kind of stuck in there, so I gotta pull that oil pump off the front of there, see if I can get, here's a little better view, see if I can get that chain off. And then I gotta go and pull that sprocket off down there too. Hopefully that's not too bad. You know, when it was cranking without starting, it was still building up oil pressure really good. So I'm going to take the oil pump off anyways and take a look at that. If it's fine, then I'm going to put that one right back on there. But we are going to replace the oil pickup O-ring there on the bottom of the pump while we're underneath here. Other than that, underneath, I mean, yeah, there's carbon buildup. Yeah, it's 167,000 miles on this motor. I think I'm going to do a deep clean after this round of fixes here, and then she'll be good to go. All right, let's see what kind of damage we got behind this oil pump. Oil pump here should be the last thing that's holding this thing on the crank here. Yeah. All right, so we got the oil pump off of here. Let's take a look. Looks like our O-ring stayed down inside there. We'll peel that out. You know, she looks a little squared off, but not too bad. You can see where the chain was scraping on the inside there, but I mean, all in all, everything still looks like it's intact. I don't know. Well, look at, you know, there was something, it was rubbing on there for a while. It wasn't something that was just happened. So I don't know, maybe that tensioner was gone for a while. That would explain maybe some of the shavings that were down in there. And, you know, this is made in Canada, so that should be good to go for another 500,000 miles. Now, here is the oil pickup O-ring. And I mean, aside from being square, which I almost feel like it's designed to be a little square, it is still pretty squishy, pliable. You know, since I'm in here, I'm going to replace it. But the source of my low oil pressure occasionally, I think, based off of what I see here, was not because of this O-ring. But we're going to replace it anyways. Typically, when I've been seeing low oil pressure, you'll see it in my other video, the sensor screen gets clogged up underneath the oil pressure sensor. We'll hang on to that guy just for, you know, I'll throw it underneath my air compressor over there for the next, I don't know, 5 years or something. All right, let's get this timing chain off of here and see what else we got going on. There we go. There you go, chain. Oh, yeah, you know, I think it's a good thing that I bought a new timing chain, because this guy, we got a broken link there. So the question would be, did that link break as a result of the tensioner letting loose, or is that, oh, look at that. We got two broken there, actually. So, You know, that is odd. Let me know down in the comments if you guys have ever seen a chain that only partially breaks like that. I mean, that's twisted. That is really interesting. It's not a clean break by any means, but she definitely broke there. We'll just, I'm not going to set it in that coolant. I'm just going to set it down here. All right, tensioner. So that just came right off by itself. Oops. And she had some rubbing going on there. It is really, really interesting. That thing just disintegrated, basically. What else can we get at here? You know, that crank sprocket down on the bottom looks okay. We'll see whether or not we can get that guy off of there. If we can't get that off, then we just may end up sticking with it. We'll have to inspect the bottom, make sure the teeth are okay. Up on the top here, I mean, you can see that they were kissed a little bit up there. I do have a new camshaft sprocket, so I will probably trade that out. And there's that piece of that link right there. Let's get that out of here with a magnet. Nope. Yeah, there we go. And that little guy was just sitting right up on top of there at the VVT valve. All right, next up, I think we got these two bolts down underneath here. We're going to pull those two off. That should take our tensioner and guide off of there. And then I think we're going to wrap it up for the night, run to the parts store, grab a couple of parts, that oil pan gasket, and some parts cleaner, and we'll be back at it again tomorrow. All right, got the tensioner off. There's what's left. That spring basically fell off as soon as I pulled it out. I think we've accounted for all of the other extra pieces down here, and man, that thing just got eaten right up. You know, with how dirty this thing is compared to everything else, I wonder if she's been broken for a little while there. But hey, we got her down, and we're over the hump now. We gotta start putting this thing back together. All right, we got the parts on the parts watcher here. Let's get her cranked up overnight here. All right, boys, back at it again today. So I pulled the oil pan and the other things I put in the parts washer last night. You know, cleaned up pretty good. A little bit of varnish up inside there, but a lot of that sludge is gone down in there. And, you know, underneath doesn't look so bad either. So we're going to get to putting this thing back together. Spoke too soon yesterday. I'm actually going to replace the sprockets both up here on the camshaft itself. Going to replace the variable valve timing actuator up inside there as well, because I was getting some codes on that periodically. It would go away with oil flush with some seafoam, but figured since I'm in here I might as well do that. And we're going to attempt to remove the crankshaft sprocket down on the bottom there too, and just replace those just in case, you know, if the teeth were worn or something, resulting in this catastrophic failure underneath here to the timing chain. We'll just go with all new timing components, and then we'll be on our way to putting her back together. Over here, we ended up picking up a bearing puller and separator set. That's what we're going to use to get the bottom crankshaft sprocket off of there. Boy, I hope I can get that. Hope I can get that guy out of there. Yeah, hallelujah. All right, look at that. Now we are officially over the hump. It's all reassembly from here. You know, you look at this thing, and I mean, honestly, it doesn't look too bad. There's a couple of marks up around the top of the teeth there, but from like a wear perspective and everything, it looks pretty good. Since we're in here, I mean, it's like a $25 part. Might as well change it out while we're in here. All right, let's get to putting this thing back together. Let's do a little bit of cleanup around here. before we start putting her back together. You want to make sure all your sealing surfaces around the timing chain cover and the water pump here are nice and clean, and the oil pan as well. We'll get underneath there, but we are going to focus on getting the timing set back on here. We'll get that oil pump mounted back up, and then we're going to go ahead and get the oil pan underneath and get all the hardware up underneath there. I hope that cam still turns. I guess we'll find out once we put the cam sprocket back on. Brother, you know it's a good sign when you're busting out the torque wrench, because that means you're putting this thing back together. All right! All right, so here's our replacement crank sprocket. You can see there is a keyway up at the top there. And then on the other side of this, you get the dot that's right there. There's a dot right on top of that tooth there. You're going to want to line those dots up when you put the cam sprocket on. Note the dot does not line up with the top of that keyway there, so just keep that in mind when you go ahead and set the chain on this thing. There we go. And yeah, it's a little tougher to get it that little bit more. So what we're going to do is actually use the old sprocket itself and the old crankshaft harmonic balancer bolt. We'll thread that in there and we'll crank her down to get that sprocket fully seated there. All right, I think she's in there. The crank wants to move. She's got good compression. At least one of the cylinders is closed. All right. There we go. All right, right there. Got our dot facing up. All right, so we're going to set our torque wrench to 18 foot-pounds for this these two fasteners up on the front here. Now you want to leave that pin in place there because it's holding the spring finger actually shut here. So keep that pin in place until we get the timing chain put on here. You can see on the side over here, the chain or something has been rubbing there for a while. I don't know how it's possible for the chain to be rubbing over there, unless there was just something. If you got some ideas about that, any experts on there, tell me how you think that side of the engine block could get worn down from the chain. I'm wondering if this tensioner was broken for a while and that thing was just slapping around in there for a long time. So another thing I want to show you, this is our new variable valve timing sprocket. The one that I pulled off over here the other day. Let's get this out of the way here. I want you to look at where the top dead center timing mark is on this one relative to the two sensor tabs that are hanging off here. The timing mark on the one that I pulled off is actually all the way over here. So I looked at this online and I'm kind of thinking, well, this doesn't make sense. The timing marks are off, but the little sensor tabs there, seem to be oriented differently. And when I look at codes for this truck, I'd actually had an advanced timing issue on this for some. I had advanced timing DTC popping up. So I'm really hoping there's something wrong with the gear I pulled off and everything's right about this one. All the pictures that I could find online showed that the gear should look like the one I have in my hand. So let's hope that it holds together once we put it back together. Okay, now on the back side of this, you got this little alignment post coming out here, and then also you've got oil pressure that builds up inside of the camshaft on these variable valve timing cams. And basically what it does is it pushes oil into the back of this guy, and depending on how the solenoid pushes in and out on the cam bolt itself, we'll show you that in a second, it basically times the cam according to the oil pressure in there. All right, before we put the chain on there, we're gonna go ahead and just see if we can get this cam into the top dead center position. So I am going to mount up our sprocket here. This is our new variable valve timing bolt here as well. And from what I've seen online, you got to replace it if you ever do pull the cam sprocket off, because it is a torque to yield bolt itself. But let's go ahead and get this guy on here and lined up to the point of where we can get the cam in place. Then we're going to take the cam sprocket back off and then put the chain on around it. So we want to get that cam lined up with the crank before we do too much here. I'm not going to torque this guy down just yet, but we're going to put it on here enough that we can turn the cam and get our timing marks lined up. She's actually probably pretty close right there, actually. I'm going to look underneath here and see what we got. We got to crank her around here. And I guess we're going to verify whether or not the cam even still moves in there. Yeah, she's moving. Not much though. I don't know if I like that. Kind of torquing it in right now. Actually, okay. Well, we'll just go in reverse. Probably not the best idea, considering that the valves probably don't like going in reverse, but well, we got a little spring pressure there that's knocking her back and forth. From the looks of it, I would say our dots are lined up here. Let's get that chain on there. So the nice thing about this timing chain I got is it's got a little black link up on the top there. I'm going to put that straight across from the top dead center arrow down to the bottom, at least as a visual. I'm trying to get this guy loaded up on here, and we'll see how she turned out here. I can't really see it from the front here, but we're gonna go back and review the footage and see what we got, whether or not we're lined up there. Well, I think we're as close as we're gonna get here, so I'm gonna go ahead and just roll the engine over manually by hand. We'll get it through at least 1 or 2 revolutions, take a look at the timing to make sure that she's still lined up there after going back to top dead center the next time. Well, all of these valves still look to be the same orientation. We're gonna go ahead and still crank it over here, see what kind of action we get. These valves aren't moving with the camshaft connected now. Maybe we got a bigger problem inside this girl. We got some valve action on the front there. Oh, there we go. Yeah, we got some valve action going on here. Yeah, look at that. Sweet. And some weird tricking noises. I smell a lot of gasoline. Probably some unspent gasoline that's been sitting down in the cylinders for this thing trying to fire. But hey, all the valves are moving. Look at that. Righteous. All right, let's see. We roll her over. Should be back at top dead center now. Hopefully those arrows are lined up. If they're not, then it might be time for a beer. All right, good news. I just watched the tape. You guys saw it before I did. We are ready to roll with this thing. So I'm going to go ahead and torque it down. It goes to 55 foot-pounds on that cam bolt. And then we go another 50 degrees once it's torqued down. Yeah! Hey, there's 55. Now we want to go another 50 degrees. So I think that's about 50 degrees there. Looks good enough. Yeah, that's good. And we'll just do a little tapper here. Look at that, perfect. All right, so we are set here. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this little grenade pin down here, and it ought to tighten right up in a second here. And then we're gonna go ahead and get the oil pan and oil pump put back on here. And I think what we'll end up doing after that is we'll get the oil pan back up on the bottom, get that all sealed up, and then we're gonna get everything else lined up on the front here. And I'll fill her up with oil, and then we're probably gonna try starting her. Before I put the front differential and the steering rack and that cross member, I think we'll be able to crank her and at least see whether or not she starts. Next thing we're gonna do, we're just gonna slide the oil pump on there, and I am gonna wait to put the pickup on, go underneath and do that up from the bottom. But basically, we're gonna put her on here kind of loosely, line it up on the crank sprocket down there. And you'll notice she is a little oily. I took the oil pump off and I actually cleaned it up. And then I just dumped some oil down inside it, hoping that it'll at least be a little bit filled enough to draw some pressure rather than just putting her in there bone dry. And we'll see. There we go. All right. The other thing too is I've seen where people will get a feeler gauge out and measure the clearance and all that. What we're going to do is basically loosely get these bolts on here. We're going to turn the crank again and basically let it self-center, and then we're going to torque these guys down to 18 foot-pounds around the outside here. All right, boys, well, let's get underneath there, get that oil pickup O-ring replaced. We'll get the pickup tube back up underneath there, and then we'll come back up to the front here and go to work on the front cover. All right, so we got our oil inlet tube here all cleaned up, and a new O-ring from Felpro right down here. It came with the gasket kit. I actually bought one separately as well, but we're gonna go ahead and just put this O-ring around here. And then we're gonna get back underneath there and slide it up in from the bottom. We're gonna fasten her up, and then we'll have a new oil inlet O-ring on this as well. An added bonus for breaking the timing chain. All right, we're gonna come up from the bottom here now. And I left these guys on here loose so I wouldn't lose them. And we got to go find, up on the front of the block here, do see the oil pickup coming down. So we're going to go ahead and pull out this little 10mm that's up here too. Let's get her maneuvered up inside here. There we go. And around over here. And that's it. Yeah. And let's get this guy started here. And we're going to torque this 10mm up on the bottom pickup up to 18 foot-pounds as well. What?
What's your problem?
Nothing, just trying to find some things.
Is it working?
So far.
Dad, will the world ever end?
Someday, honey, but probably not while you're alive, so I don't even worry about it.
Wait,
Yeah.
what's it gonna happen? Well, people just keep having babies.
Yep.
Is the world ever gonna end?
Nope. Not in our lifetimes, guys. I wouldn't even worry about it. Yeah.
Take that.
I told you guys that.
Take that.
Alright, let's go over here.
All right, we got the pickup tube on there. And before we go ahead and put the oil pan on, we are gonna clean this surface up real good underneath here. I think I had a little bit of a leak at the back of the pan before I took this apart. So we want to make sure we got this sealed up real nice, and I think we're going to go ahead and put the oil pan on down here first before we get back up to the top, just because I'm already laying underneath here and I don't want to get back up again. So we got to get this surface absolutely clean, especially here in the corners where you got a little bit of RTV around the edges, because it's kind of where the two housings come together, the pans. And I think that's where a lot of times these things will end up leaking. So we gotta get all this RTV off of here. There's some white RTV up around the edges here, and as we put the pan back on, we're gonna put a little dollop of some black RTV up there, and hopefully seals them up nice and permanently. You can see where there was some RTV back up in the corners here, I mentioned before. Need this to be as clean as humanly possible for this RTV to bond to the surface. There we go. So those are back there, and then when I put the timing cover up on the front, I'm going to put a dollop up on top of the oil pan at that point. So let's go get that pan. All right, so long, soldier. There we go. Oops. Just want to get at least two of these guys started here so I can get my arms down. Ugh. A little word to the wise here. These two long bolts on the back of the oil pan, seems like they stay outside the oil pan, but when you put them up in there, if you don't put them in perfectly straight, they'll feel like they're threading in and they won't actually bite. So if you're not careful, I actually touched on the flywheel on this other side over here. You just gotta kind of, I don't know if I can get my arm up in this side, but on the other side I could get my arm up enough to kind of guide it in. On this side, we're gonna have to just kind of feel around a little bit. Just be mindful of that. Wow. Yeah. All right, so aside from the little block off over here where they typically run an oil cooler, I gotta find that gasket. I bought one, but I don't know what I did with it. I got everything else buttoned up underneath here, and we're gonna go ahead and turn our attention up to the timing chain cover in the front and get that cleaned up, and then we are gonna get the water pump and everything back on there as well, and hopefully we'll be cranking her here this afternoon. All right, so we're back up front here. I got the timing cover, all of the auxiliaries added onto this. Put a new camshaft position sensor in addition to a new solenoid there for the VVT. Off camera, I pulled that old cam position sensor out, and I don't see any way for anyone to do that without removing this cover. That thing was so hard to pull out of there. It actually scraped away some of the plastic material as I was pulling it out. So a little bit of word of advice there: if you replace that cam position sensor, I have found you pretty much need to just take the thing out of the truck. All right, we're gonna do another dollop down here in the corner, just like we did in the back. All right, so something I learned as I was putting this thing back together, you actually kind of want to lead with the bottom. Otherwise, I feel like that oil pan gasket wants to kind of get in the way as she goes up into place. So just keep that in mind when you put her back on down there. There we go. Well, boys, we got the timing cover back on the front here, and we got the oil pan on the bottom. Let's get this valve cover put back on here. We'll get all the accessories put back on the front, and then we're going to turn her over and see if she starts before I put the rest of the underneath up there. All right, guys, we got the water pump and everything on down there. Hoses hooked up. Just got to get the valve cover on this side, and then we'll get the intake track stuff hooked up there, and then go down underneath, get that oil cooler bypass hooked up, and we should be cranking her. All right, guys, so I got the oil cooler bypass mounted up on there now. The gasket just came in today. Got the two little access panels put back on in the back of the transmission, and ultimately I need to get a pulley press, and I ordered that this morning. Hopefully it'll be here tonight. That may be the last thing that we end up doing here, but what I'm going to do is go button up whatever I can up top, and if my pulley press doesn't arrive in time, I'm going to go ahead and put the cross member and the front differential back up inside here as well. So the last thing that we would have to do is a pulley press. If that comes early enough, then I'm going to put the pulley on, get the motor all buttoned up, and crank it over here, fill it with coolant and everything before putting the cross member on here, just to make sure we don't have to pull this oil pan back apart. So really hoping that press comes in here soon. Makes me hungry. You want to know what makes me hungry for?
What?
All right, next up, we're just going to put some cheap Walmart oil in here, and I'm going to mix a little ATF in here as well, because with all that carbon buildup we saw inside there as we were tearing into things, I want to try to flush a lot of that out, and I think that has to do with my sensor filter plugging up all the time as well. So we're going to do 5 quarts of some 5W30 Walmart synthetic oil here, and then we're going to do another quart of just regular ATF in there as well. Meanwhile, while I'm waiting for this pulley installer to get here, I'm going to go inside and get a bottle of champagne, because if this thing starts up on the first time, rest assured we're going to have a little celebration out here. I'm not one to celebrate prematurely, but I just couldn't pass up this opportunity to break open a little bubbly down here. And if the truck turns over and starts after I get that crank pulley on there, we're going to be doing a little celebrating. Yeah! All right, the package arrived just in time. Still got some light out here. And we are going to go ahead and affix this to the front of the crankshaft and start driving down that pulley and get her locked in. We'll put the belt on, we'll get the intake back put on, we'll get the intake put back on, and then we ought to be starting her. All right, so we got this tool here. This is what I've been waiting for. It's got basically a thrust bearing on it, and this threads into the crankshaft itself, and then you got this nut on the outside here. And effectively you just crank this guy down until the crank is fully seated. When we take it out, and then we go ahead and put in the regular new crank bolt. Want to get her threaded in there far enough that basically I think we'll get her close to bottoming out. And then there we go, bottoms out. I'm going to back her off just a little bit so we're not really cranking on the threads too hard. Now we're going to turn the nut in against the thrust bearing itself. Oh boy, she's going in there pretty far. There we go. Okay. And we'll see if we get a deep well in on the end of there. I hope we can. If not, then we might have to resort to something else. No, our deep well is not quite deep enough. So, well, we'll have to resort to plan B here. I don't know exactly what that is yet. I think what we're going to want to do is we're going to actually take this nut off of here. I'm going to put a bigger nut around it to kind of space it back this way. Not going to thread the nut on there. But effectively, I'm going to put a spacer in between our thrust nut, our thrust washer, and the nut that we're going to drive down. Conveniently, I dropped a nut over here the other day. Ah! Yeah, we're not going to grab it right now. Nope. I think that's it. Ouch. All right, look at that. A little wet inside there, that's kind of odd. Let's go ahead and get our crank bolt and let's get her cranked in there. All right, we got a new bolt here. Put a little anti-seize on the bottom down there, and let's get her threaded in. All right. All right, we're going to get the torque wrench and double check that, and then do some finishing touches underneath here. We got this auxiliary water pump, which pumps up with the hybrid system while the engine isn't moving. There's a little bracket I got to put on here, and we're going to get the belt put back on there, and then we're going to go ahead and get her cranked over. Let's keep our fingers crossed here. All right, so we got the serpentine belt up on here now. Looks good. And next up, we're going to go ahead and get that intake track put back on there. We got the coolant cap off here too, because when we start it up, I'm going to be adding coolant. We're going to let it run for a little while with the coolant. Basically, we're going to let it idle here for a little while too. Make sure the oil pressure comes up. I did lube up the oil pump before I put it in there, and I'm hoping that's enough that it'll be able to draw some oil up from the pan. If not, we might have to go into the side down here, pull that plug, add some oil into the side, but we'll see what happens here first. All right, I think we've got everything set up on here now, so let's go ahead and crank her over. All right, so I cleared the codes just because I know I had like a MAF sensor code and the camshaft position sensor, among the O2 sensors as well. So while I was waiting over the last couple of days, I replaced all the O2 sensors underneath there. Pretty much all three of four were shot. We are going to get a service powered steering and probably service 4-wheel drive, because those are unhooked right now. But we got a full tank of gas, and let's crank her and see if the oil pressure comes up and she starts. All right, come on. Nope, not there yet. What do we got going on here? Well, we got oil pressure, so that's good. But she doesn't want to stay running. Noise-wise, I mean, she sounds okay, but she doesn't want to stay running. Let's see what we got for codes. All right, so we're gonna put some coolant inside here, and I'm just wondering if maybe if it's completely empty, that if there is no coolant, she won't start. So let's get this some coolant down in here, and we'll crank her over and see what happens. Whoop. No mechanical noises that I can hear. Sounds like she's only running on a couple of cylinders. She's idling, but it says engine is reduced power. Let's see what kind of codes we're getting here. All right, so I'd say we have a partial success. The truck at least starts, but it sounds like it's only running on like, I don't know, 4 cylinders or something. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull some of the plugs here, take a look down in there and see what we got going on, see if we at least can see on the driver's side whether or not we're firing all 4 of those. You know, they were pretty well oiled up and were really wet when I took it and boroscoped it earlier last week. So I wondered if I followed out a couple of plugs, but otherwise, I mean, once she revs up, it actually seems like it wants to stay running. But when it idles, it really starts lugging. So let's see what's going on in there. Well, guys, remember how I said there seemed to be something peculiar about the old camshaft sprocket, the one that I pulled off versus the one that I was putting on? And I thought something was maybe broken with this camshaft sprocket here. Well, you know, after further inspection, I looked online, and there's actually 2 different camshaft sprocket part numbers for this model of the GMT 900 variable valve timing LS motor. And the hybrid just happened to have its own. So I think my timing is about 20 degrees off with that other cam sprocket. So we got to dig back into it. I'm not going to take you step by step because I'm not going to take the time to show you all the mistakes that I made. But we're going to go ahead and take this thing back apart. We got a new cam sprocket on order. Hopefully it gets here tomorrow. And we'll put that one in the truck, and hopefully she cranks and we can go ahead and pop that champagne. So I'll catch you in a couple minutes after we get this thing taken care of here. Time for a speed disassembly. All right. All right, guys, so we finally got a sprocket in a box that isn't broken. And pull this guy out of here. And yeah, that's what we were expecting. She looks to be in good shape. Interesting, there's like some grease on there. It might just be some wear and grease or something that they use to assemble these things and test them out. But again, there we go. We got the 12602699 special hybrid only VVT timing gear. Let's get this thing put on. All right, we got the wrong timing sprocket off of there now. Let's take a look at the difference between the two here. So on the surface, they look to be the same, right? I got the sensor tab basically lined up on both of these. But where these things start to get a little different is down here. That's your top dead center arrow mark on the one I just took off. That's for the standard LS motor. And then for the hybrid, just like the bad one that I took off, or the one that I'm replacing, the timing marks over here may be a good 30 or you could even say 45 degree difference there. So once you end up putting these sprockets on, your timing just mechanically, even before you start to mess around with the variable valve timing and it starts to actuate in there, the timing is starting off in the wrong spot. So this is the location hole that lines up on the camshaft itself. You can see that is also rotated there. And if you really look at, I mean, I don't know, I was thinking about just rotating this one on the camshaft rather than buying a new one. But even then, when I look at the difference here, I can see that, you know, this hole is not lined up relative to this slot here either. So I don't know, there's a couple of different things going on here. If I was going to put it all back together, I didn't want to take a chance and do the wrong thing again. So rather than waste the time, I went ahead and just bought the regular AC Delco part there. So let's get to putting this thing on, and hopefully she starts up and runs good this time. All right, guys, we got everything put back together underneath there, so we're gonna give her another go here, the second round. The only thing that was a little difficult putting her back together was the oil pickup bolt actually was stretched out, and I don't know if I stretched it when I put it in the last time or if it's that way from the factory, because I don't remember torquing it all that hard. But this time around, I got a new bolt put in there, got her torqued to 18 foot-pounds, and we got to get the coolant filled up here, and we're gonna give her another go. Let's see. Fingers crossed. Oh yeah, baby. There we go. Oh yeah. She's purring like a kitten. Let's let her sit here for a couple seconds. Aside from that exhaust leak underneath there, everything sounds pretty good. Probably got a residual code from the last time we tried to run her, but let's let her warm up here, and we'll go add a little more coolant as she's running. Oh yeah, she sounds good. Oil pressure picked up nice. No noises under the hood. Sounds a little lopey. Let's let her learn here for a little bit. The truck starts, but after about 30 seconds of running, it starts to misfire. So I think we're gonna call it a wrap on this video. At least we'll get to documentation the whole saga of trying to get this thing started. But I do want to show you what it's acting like now. Sounds pretty normal. You know, a little bit of an exhaust leak. And at idle, she started stumbling a little bit. The exhaust note is a little lumpy, so this actually seems to be the best that it's running the last 2 to 3 days as I've been trying to troubleshoot it. But I swap the coils. There we go. So that blinking light indicates we got an active misfire going on, and I'm getting the P0300 code, and through logging I'm seeing that cylinders number 2 and 8 are acting up pretty consistently. So we're going to dive into that, but we're going to call that a wrap on this video. I vowed not to get a haircut until this thing was fixed, but it's been since the beginning of May or even April, maybe even March, that I've had a haircut. So yeah, we're gonna get a haircut, start fresh, and dig into what's going on with that bank number 2 there. And we'll do that in another video, because that's going to be a fun activity in itself. So thanks again for watching, everybody. Hopefully you learned along with me that you can't always trust the parts finder on the general online parts catalogs. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another video, hopefully with this thing fully running. and not misfiring. Maybe I've been a valve in there or something. We'll see. Thanks for watching.